Thank you, colleague. And now, finally, I will hand over to Akona Kenqu. I've known her as a person who was a student and then also now works at the Market Photo Workshop. But I should mention that the work that I've seen of hers was there at Dube Station, was it? Dube Station, yes. And she had documented skateboarders in Soweto. And I thought it was a very interesting project to begin with, but also the way in which it was presented it was basically a skating shop. Yeah, it was very interesting, and then the hip hop that happened afterwards. I think that the ways in which work was presented spoke about it, quite for me anyway, quite a radical shift from the kind of gallery type of situation in which work is often presented, and usually also far removed from the kind of source where the images are taken. So I think that narrowing of the gap between the viewer and the subject for me was an important kind of intervention. But anyway, she can tell you more about those things.
Hi everyone. So I think today I'm focusing on the archive. I'm focusing more on the work I did for Mabsantu Mufukeng. So I was called in by Maker that they represent Mabsantu. So about 70% of his archive was done. And I then was there for the 30% of it, which took me about 2 years. And also what was interesting, Bob Santu was not around most of the time, so the interaction between me and the person that I'm doing work for was quite tricky. So I then started going to his house in Best Valley, where a lot of his negatives were, prints that he made himself. He has a dark room in his house. I worked on his library and sorting that out. I mean, even the first time he saw me, he said, "Are you the girl who effed up my organization?" You know, because really, I came in as a stranger, then reorganized his life, then he comes back from overseas, and his house is totally different, you know, so I understand that part, so I kind of agree with him. So what was interesting is that I was working between Maker, the space that is, it's a proper space with proper facilities, and going to his house, where actually Usanto is quite an organized man. You know, the way a lot of his negatives were stored, they were still in good condition. Also, when I was asking him how did he manage to have all of this so nicely preserved, was that he worked from a dark room. So he understood the idea of processing and, you know, data capture. So, I'm interested more in the physicality of the archive, right? How you then take people's negatives and digitize them, and how those images then become accessible. With Santu's work, it's not much accessible. It's very much curated because he works with Maker that represent him, and they represent how the work comes out. But what was interesting is that his work is very personal, you know, and taking what's so personal to him and still not giving out to his family. I mean, it's quite it's quite tricky how it's handled, Archive Akona. It's good that there is the process of getting someone in like me to come and do the handling of the work, but then work over 2 years and then not see the work after that. You know, he works with a company called Excavating from Germany, and the idea is that there will be small books that will be released of a bigger narrative of his work. But also, it's still accessible to a certain crowd. And that's what I worry about. You know, I'm interested in archives being accessible. As Quiz was saying, I had an exhibition in Soweto. I photographed people in Soweto. I could not go into a gallery first with work that is from here. So I want work has to be accessible to masses. So we need spaces like this to operate for that. You know, we keep on talking about doing work for the people. Who are these people we're talking about? Are we talking about galleries? You know, people are educated about how to look at images. Those things that, I think that is my question even to the panel. How do we then create these archives? Because first, we need to deal with the trust. I mean, I would love to see your archive, but also I'd like a level of trust between me and you, or whatever organization, and then the accessibility of that. So how do we make archives accessible to everyone? You know, these spaces exist, but the communities, if you walk out here and ask, when's Alalani? They don't know. And that's our job, to educate. You know, we talk about archives, but do those people understand what an archive is? So our job is to start from scratch and scrape it so that people understand what are we dealing with. And then, you know, a conversation must happen between the people who are doing the artwork, who are preserving it, and also the people who influence that, which is the public. Yeah, I think that's about it.